Jung, Psychology and Religion.
Ready to go deep. Today, we're tackling Carl Jung. But forget the Psych 101 stuff. We're going way beyond the surface to explore his ideas about religion. We're diving into his work, psychology, and religion. And trust me, this is going to get interesting.
You know, what's so fascinating about Jung is how he saw religion as this, fundamental part of our psychology, especially the unconscious. He wasn't just analyzing, rituals or institutions. He wanted to understand the core human needs that religion speaks to.
So it's more than just saying, hey, religion is a universal thing, right? What makes this matter? How does this change how we see ourselves, how we see the world?
Well, it means that even if you don't follow a specific religion, that need for meaning, for connection, it's still there inside you. We're wired for something bigger, whether it's traditional faith or something else entirely.
Which is a huge difference from Freud, right? Freud basically brushed religion off as just a neurosis.
Totally. And that's where Jung really forges his own path. He saw religion as something to be taken seriously, studied deeply, not explained away. In his words, it's a living relationship with the psychic activities of the unconscious.
Okay, hold on. Break that down a bit. Psychic activities of the unconscious. It sounds kind of eerie, like there's another mind living in our heads.
Think of it less like another mind, more like this hidden intelligence working behind the scenes of our daily lives. Jung really believed the unconscious isn't just an empty space. It's an active, powerful force shaping our thoughts, emotions, even physical experiences.
Like that example he gives of the patient who was terrified of cancer. It wasn't that he was consciously obsessing about it. The fear was so deep in his unconscious, it almost manifested physically.
Exactly. It shows how the unconscious isn't something we can always control or even fully grasp. It has its own logic, its own language, its own way of making itself known.
So how do we even start to understand this language of the unconscious? Jung seemed to think dreams held the key, but he wasn't exactly on board with Freud's whole dreams or wish fulfillment idea.
Right. Jung thought the dream is its own interpretation. He wanted us to pay attention to the symbols in dreams, the raw, unfiltered language, rather than forcing them into neat little boxes.
Makes sense, because dreams can be so bizarre and illogical. And speaking of bizarre and illogical, Jung talks about this patient, a scientist who had a series of dreams, 400 of them.
And in these dreams, we start to see the emergence of some pretty powerful archetypes, especially the mandala. The patient envisioned it as this sort of cosmic clock. And within this clock-like universe, the number 4 appeared a whopping 71 times.
71. Okay, there's no way that's just a random number.
Yeah.
We're talking about some serious symbolism here, right?
Absolutely. The number 4 has deep roots, representing wholeness, the fundamental order of the universe. Think about it. The 4 elements: earth, air, fire, and water. It's amazing to see these ancient symbols popping up in the dreams of a modern scientific mind.
It's like he's tapping into some collective unconscious, some well of ancient wisdom that goes beyond time and culture. So what's the meaning of this mandala, this recurring 4? What's it all about?
To really get into that, we need to explore medieval alchemy and Jung's idea of the death of God. And that's a story better saved for the next part of our deep dive.
Okay, you've really got me hooked now. Cosmic clocks, the number 4 popping up everywhere, a scientist whose dreams are full of these ancient symbols. Let's break it all down.
So remember how this patient, he sees the mandala as this universe, right, divided into 4 sections. And when he sees it, he feels this sense of harmony. This is where things get really interesting. See, for Jung, the mandala, it isn't just some random geometric shape. It represents the self, the whole person, that drive for wholeness we all have inside us.
So the scientist dealing with these huge questions about the universe, he sees this image of a perfectly ordered 4-part universe. And it's like his unconscious is saying, hey, look, here's a glimpse of wholeness.
Yeah, exactly. But there's a twist. Unlike traditional mandalas, which often have a deity in the center, this patient's mandala, it has an empty center. This is where Jung's concept of the death of God comes in.
Hold on. Is Jung really saying that God is dead? Because that seems a little extreme, even for a guy who loves archetypes.
Not literally, no.
Yeah.
Jung's talking about a psychological shift, not a theological statement.
Mm-hmm.
What he's suggesting is that for people today, those old ways of relating to the divine through traditional religions and dogmas, they're losing their power.
So it's less about God actually dying, more about our idea of God changing.
Right. It's like those old projections are fading away, and what we're left with is this more personal, individual experience of the divine. It doesn't necessarily mean we all become atheists, but it does mean that the search for meaning, it might take us down some unexpected roads.
And for Jung, the mandala, especially with that empty center, it becomes a really powerful symbol of this change, right? It's like it's saying the divine isn't out there somewhere, it's right here inside you.
Exactly. And this links back to the patient's dream. This is a scientist, someone who's all about rationality, logic. But his unconscious, through these potent symbols, it's pulling him towards something deeper, something beyond the material world.
You know, it reminds me of what you were saying earlier about how even if we don't follow a specific religion, that need for meaning, for connection, it's still there. Maybe this patient's dream is a really good example of that. He's not finding fulfillment in traditional religions, so his unconscious is searching for it somewhere else.
And that's what I think is so exciting, because it opens up this whole new way of thinking about religion, about spirituality. It's not about blindly following rules anymore. It's about going on this personal journey, guided by our own experiences and the symbols that come from our unconscious.
It's about being more aware of those inner voices, those dreams, those gut feelings, the things that point us toward a deeper understanding of ourselves and the world.
Yes. And figuring out how we actually do that, how we strengthen that connection with our unconscious and understand those whispers. Well, that's a conversation for the last part of our deep dive.
So we've talked about Jung's idea of the death of God, not as this literal event, but more like a change in how we connect to something bigger than ourselves. But then how do we even navigate this new landscape? How do we tap into that unconscious and find our own meaning when the old ways don't seem to work anymore?
Well, that's the big question, isn't it? And Jung, I think he'd say there's no one right answer. Remember how we saw religion as a living relationship with the unconscious? Like any relationship, it takes effort. It takes listening, you know. You got to be present.
So less about sticking to the rules and more about exploring on your own terms.
Yeah, exactly. It's about noticing the little things, the symbols, those weird coincidences that seem to happen, those moments when it feels like the line between what you know and what you feel is blurry. Jung thought these were like messages, from deep down, clues leading us towards becoming whole.
Like our scientist friend in the number 4. That wasn't just some random thing, it was a symbol trying to tell him something.
Exactly. And remember how that symbol made him feel, that sense of harmony, like seeing this bigger picture. That's the power of symbols. They hit us on this deep level, past all the rational stuff.
But how do we learn to speak this language, this symbol language? It's like we're all wandering around in the dark, hoping to trip over some profound truth.
It takes practice, for sure. Jung talked about active imagination, this idea where you're not just letting your mind wander, but you're really working with your imagination, letting images and symbols pop up and then interacting with them.
So it's like having a conversation with your own unconscious.
Yes, like you're inviting the unconscious to use its language through images, dreams, even daydreams. And the more you do it, the easier it becomes to hear what it's trying to tell you.
It makes you think about how people find meaning in art, in music, being out in nature, even in their jobs. Could those be part of this living relationship too?
Totally. It's not just about, meditating in a cave somewhere trying to decode your dreams. The unconscious can talk to us in so many ways. It's about finding what speaks to you, what gives you that feeling of awe, of wonder, that sense of deep connection, what Jung called the numinous.
So even though the old ways of thinking about religion might be changing, that doesn't mean the search for meaning has to end. Actually, it might be even more important now to build that connection with our own inner world.
I love that. And
Yeah.
you never know, by exploring our unconscious, by really listening to what's inside, maybe we'll find that sense of the sacred in the most unexpected places.
What a journey this has been into the world of Carl Jung. It's clear his ideas are still so important today, especially when we're all trying to figure out what it means to be human, to find our purpose, to connect with something bigger. So to everyone listening, what does divine mean to you? Where do you find that sense of wonder in your own life? Keep listening to those inner voices. You never know where they might lead you.